With the release of Shenhe basically making all the Cryo units in this game into, how should I say this, very broken characters, meta players will be pulling for her and waifu lovers, that's me, all pulling for her. I thought it would be a good idea to make this full quick guide on Shenhe. I wrote that line before coming back to review the script, so this is not a short video. So welcome to this not so quick video guide on Shenhe. This video will cover everything from talent, weapons, artifacts, and more. So timestamp in the video so you can skip to the parts that you care about. If you do find this video helpful, remember to like and subscribe for more guides in the future. Going over talents first, as this determines what we're looking to build and what kind of stats we require. Normal attack is just normal attack, so let's not bother looking over it, but instead, let's take a look at elemental skill. But before we take a look at that, let's take a look at the damage formula, and most importantly, the flat damage part. This is what Shenhe boosts, so remember this for later. Her elemental skill deals some cryo damage, but that's not very important. Depending on if you tap or hold, you get 5 or 7 stacks of icy coil. Whenever you have coil stacks, characters that deal cryo damage, that can be normal, charge, plunge, skill, or burst damage. A percentage of Shenhe's attack is going to buff that damage. And remember the flat damage I talked about earlier? Well, this is the icy coil damage that's being buffed. This damage might look small, but should not be overlooked. Going back to the damage formula, you can see that this damage is added before the damage bonuses. That's stuff like elemental skill damage or normal attack damage bonuses, or crit is added. This means your Shenhe could be adding around 2 to 4k damage before crit and crit damage. This also without enemy defense, just to be clear. But adding the other multipliers on with enemy defense, you can still easily do 2 to 4k damage, and this is per quill, and you have 5 of them. So that means you could do 20k damage for one character. Her A4 Ascension passive also increases the skill damage by 15% for 5 seconds if we tap, or normal charge plunge damage by 15% for 15 seconds if we hold. Just another way to nicely add more damage to our characters. Her elemental burst might also look weak, but it does give a nice damage boost and do some damage herself. At talent level 10, it reduces enemy cryo and physical resistance of the opponents inside of it by 15%, plus the Ascension 1 passive increases the character's cryo damage bonus by 15% while inside of it. All these small little buffs might not look like much separate, but when we add them together, it becomes a really big and useful buffs. While we're on the topic of Shenhe's elemental burst, we can talk about energy recharge requirement. Shenhe's elemental burst costs 80, which is on the high end, so we'll need some energy recharge. Plus, Shenhe doesn't make many particles herself. It is recommended that you build your character up to the minimum energy recharge requirements to have more consistent uptime on ultimate, unless you don't care about that ult at all. And for Shenhe, that's about 160 to 180%, but you can get away with less if you run some form of Favonius weapon in your team or many cryo characters. Feel free to add more than what is recommended if you're not getting ult right after cooldown as well. Unlike DPS characters, Shenhe has a lot of very good weapons to pick from, but this will be very hard to say what is the best because it changes a lot from team comp to team comp. Instead, I can only really give you basic guidelines on what is good. Any weapon that is not 5-star and doesn't have energy recharge or attack percent as a second stat is not very good. This is because we only want to focus on attack percent, plus meeting the energy recharge requirements to give as much boost as possible. But if you're going to use her as a carry, you can try out other weapons, but this video is for support Shenhe. Favonius Lance, Royal Spear, Lystic Spear, The Catch, Lystic Spear with 2 stacks, Wavebreaker Fin. These weapons are all very good in terms of damage, very similar, Lystic and Fin being the best. You won't notice any real differences in real gameplay, so I recommend you use whatever is highest refinement. As for 5-stars, they're all better than 4-star weapons, but the 2 best being Engulfing Lightning or Calamity. But what's better overall? Some calculations say Engulfing, some say Calamity, but if you have the luxury of picking from these 2 weapons, I would recommend using Calamity on Shenhe and using Engulfing on another character. The rest of the 5-star like Homa, Skyward Spine, Vortex, Jade Spear, they're all decent, with Spine having the most consistent damage, all because Homa needs to have below 50% HP, Vortex needs a shield and you can't be shielded when off field, and Jade Spear needing to normal attack. For artifacts, you can either go cheap or expensive, depending on how long you want to farm for. A cheap build will be 2-piece Gladiator and 2-piece Shininawa. This gives you a total of 36% of attack. And for a more expensive build, you can go for a 4-piece Noblesse. But if you have a better Noblesse carry, such like Mona, then don't use Noblesse on Shenhe. The damage lost from the burst is made up for Shenhe's more attack to give other characters the buff. For artifact main stat, the baseline is attack percent, attack percent, attack percent. But we can change that a little bit depending on what kind of damage you're looking for. First of all, you can switch out a sand piece for energy recharge if you don't meet the energy recharge requirement. You can also replace one of the attack pieces for cryo damage bonus to give more damage to Shenhe, or replace 2 pieces of them for cryo damage bonus and crit. The difference is small, about 2 to 6%. Having that small a difference just means a good substack piece could make up for that difference, but what I recommend is just running attack percent, because that's a very easy way to get damage out without needing too much time farming for artifacts with good substats. I went through so many different scripts to figure out what's the best way to help with team comps, but ended up using this one as it best shows the flexibility of Shenhe. If you pulled Ito and didn't like how he didn't have many team comp possibilities, Shenhe will fix that issue and go further and beyond by giving almost too many team comp possibilities. Mono Cryo team, this is the most basic team you could run, and a lot of people run this, myself included. The base of this team is Shenhe plus a Cryo unit plus a healer and utility. A simple example would be Shenhe plus Ganyu plus Mona plus Jin. A pretty standard team. On the other end of the scale, we have a team like Shenhe plus Rosaria, Chanyo, and Diona. And yes, I tried this team with limited success as I ran out of Cryo damage cups to run. You can take that crazy team comp, but replace one of the Cryo characters with an animal character with Viridescent, so making more use of Cryo damage. A very good choice would be Kazuha or Sucrose, giving you team more Cryo damage bonuses. Venti can also infuse Cryo with ult to restore 50 energy, making your Cryo units have no energy recharge problems. If you have Jean, almost no reason to run Sayu unless you have to. Another character you could run is Zhongli, and he's coming in like Spanner, so it's very nice. But the flexibility of a mono Cryo team comp is not limited to just this. You can almost throw any units together and it will be just fine. And don't worry about what kind of Cryo units you run. If their element is Cryo, they will work with Shenhe. And a quick note, I find that 4 stars to be more fun than 5 stars, so if you don't have any 5-star characters, don't be afraid to pull Shenhe. If you don't like the mono Cryo team comp, you could run a melt comp with Shunning. I tried with other characters, but the ICD wasn't being very nice and didn't bother trying too much. But also the fact that Shunning is one of the best sub DPSs in the game, so there's no reason to run anything else. The basics of this team comp is Shenhe plus another Cryo unit with Shunning and a healer. One team I've been running for melt is Shenhe, Rosaria, Shunning, and Bennett. Because everything here can snapshot Bennett out, no reason to not use Bennett. Plus we need a healer and we can get Pyro Resistance for even more attack percent. But other Cryo characters with good sub DPS can also do the trick, except for Ganyu, who can't charge attack without being hit or needing to dodge. Chanyo and Bennett can also do huge DPS bursts with reverse melt and just follow up with more normal attacks till the rotation is over. Kaya could also do the trick, but not as good as Rosaria, so it's not really recommended. Anything I didn't mention probably not worth using, but you can try it if you want. If you don't have Bennett, then you can replace it with Jean or Zhongli, but probably not gonna be as good as Bennett. Eula might be surprising to see here because she's a physical DPS and doesn't do a lot of cryo damage, but Shenhe plus another cryo on the team will actually do a little better than Raiden. But this doesn't mean it's better all the time, but something you could try and play with. An example would be Eula, Shenhe, Rosaria, and Diona if you want to be a little crazy, but a safer option would be Shenhe, Eula, Rosaria, and Jean. Don't sleep on this Eula comp if you have Eula and think Shenhe doesn't work with her. Just remember to funnel energy into Eula as we can get away without having any energy recharge on her for more damage. Lastly, if you don't like meta or like meme comps, these team comps are just for you. If a character is not cryo, then Chanyeong can make them cryo. For example, Zhongli. He has a great shield and burst, but just missed a little bit of charge attack damage. So why not boost his attack with Shenhe? You all know C6 Diona is basically just a mini Ganyu, but with Shenhe she's no longer a mini Ganyu, but also not quite a Ganyu yet. If we boost her charge attack a little bit, this feels a lot closer to Ganyu. It's a level 1 talent by the way. For rotations, you can do whatever you want till Shenhe time. Use Alt, then E. Tap E if you're going in a quick swap team that use a lot of elemental skill instead of normal attacks. Hold E if you're in a normal attack team like Ganyu, Ayaka, Eula. The rest of the rotation depends on your team comp, or you can just do whatever you want because it just works. To end the video off with 2 tips or just facts. If you have C1 Shenhe, the quills don't stack and the amount is based on the last type of skill used. If you hold E then tap E, you will have 5 quill stacks. And the other way around is also true. If you see a shield and it hits it with a quill, it will take the quill stacks, but there's more damage to the shield, so yay. Not going to do a showcase as you've been watching Shenhe gameplay in the background this whole time. Hope you found this video helpful. If so, consider subscribing for more in the future, and best of luck with your wishes and have a great day.